empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? We're 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is the final prediction episode. It is game day for Ohio State and Notre Dame, 7:30 on ESPN tonight. The team is in the hotel. The campus is absolutely rocking. Columbus is buzzing right now. It is going to be an exciting countdown to kickoff. College game day is on campus. The recruits are pouring in. A lot of West Coast kids are flying in this afternoon to get to the game by 7:30. Huge weekend ahead. So we're going to get right to it because I've got the entire crew, the original SW, ready to go. But as always, we are thankful and grateful for you guys. Comment in this video what is going to be the final score of the Ohio State Notre Dame game and who are your MVPs of the game. We are so excited about this one, so I'm not even going to waste any more time because I have Bank in Nevada. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing today?
Good, Kirk.
Great.
Perfect. All right, I'm gonna start off with you, Bank. Bank, you see this, I think, as kind of somewhat of a high flying affair. I think you're kind of like me with a little bit of cautious optimism on the Jim Knowles defense. I mean, he's got a lot of bravado, a lot of bluster, a lot of confidence, which I think, when you have a team that was shell shocked on defense last year, I think some of that is good. Kind of fake it till you make it mentality. What do you expect out of Ohio State tonight, specifically out of the defense with Jim Knowles? What kind of game are you projecting for this Ohio State Notre Dame tilt?
Yeah, I think the main benefit of getting Jim Knowles, and I would have said this, they could have hired 20 different defensive coordinators. I don't think Jim Knowles invented defense. I don't think he's the greatest defensive coordinator ever. He's a pro, and that's what they need. They need an adult in the room. Combs and Barnes they were doing jobs they weren't equipped to do. It's no different than if your employer asked you to do something you've never done before, you're not sure. And then on top of that, they hired those guys, and Ryan Day forced Kerry Combs to run that single high defense of Jeff Hafley. Kerry never called any defense before. Now he's got to call a new defense he's never coached before. It was a recipe for disaster, and it was a disaster. So now you got Jim Knowles, and Jim Knowles has not been told to run the single high defense. You weren't getting it that way. He's been given free reign. It's his defense, and Ryan Day will just look the other way when they're on defense. So I think that means a lot. I think when the DC is running his defense, it's his 4-2-5. He's not running Jeff Hafley's defense. So they're going to be lined up right. They're going to be playing faster. The coverage is going to be on point. I mean, I just think you have a pro in the room now, and I think the kids are going to respond. And another point I think people are missing is just how young Ohio State was on defense last year. And all those guys now have a year to be smarter, bigger, faster, stronger, and just better for the experience of playing. So you add all that up, and I think Ohio State holds this Notre Dame offense in the 20 range. I'm not expecting a shutout. I'm not expecting less than 150 yards total. Notre Dame will get theirs. They have a running quarterback that's always given Ohio State problems. I don't care who the DC is. So I'm thinking Notre Dame is going to end up in that 20 range. And I don't think it's going to be nearly enough, to match C.J. Stroud and those dudes. So that's really how I see the defense.
Yeah, I projected that they give up 35, which might have been the highest of anybody in the industry, just because I've watched the last week of college football. I've seen how poor the tackling is. I see the lack of fundamentals. It's not really an indictment on Jim Knowles. It's not really an indictment on the defense. I just think that college football, it's like watching the Suns and the Warriors play basketball. Is a lot of offense, and I think that we're going to get behind them a lot. I think we're going to have a lot of quick strikes tonight. Trey Henderson's going to bust some long ones, and they're going to be chasing it. So, if they bust some plays and some runs and the quarterback scrambles and 35 really isn't that big of a number to get to anymore. And they scored, mid-30s against Oklahoma State in their bowl game. And, I know they got a new quarterback, but like you said, a running quarterback has always been kryptonite for us. Nevada, what do you project out of the defense? Do you agree with Bank? Do you any disagreements, or are you pretty much on board with what we're kind of projecting?
Well, I think one of the big things, and something we've talked a little bit about, but I don't think it can get enough attention, was, last year, Combs kind of lost the respect of the defensive room. And, the guys, they were openly kind of mocking him, kind of making fun of what was going on. And it really became kind of a toxic environment on defense. And when you have that happen, you've got guys freelancing, guys not doing their responsibilities. And I think with Knowles, as Banks said, he's an adult, and he's a no nonsense adult. He's not a rah rah guy. He's a no nonsense adult, and they know he's a very serious guy. He's all about ball. He's not gonna. There's no other distractions in his life, and I think the result's going to be a much more disciplined unit, a unit that that it's going to try to pride itself on physicality. I think I think they're going to be bringing it from all over the field because I do not think Ryan Day is afraid to give up scores. And I think that's the modern day of football. The modern day of football is, can you get some stops? Can you get more stops than the other teams stops you? Because the offenses are so hard to stop. So can you get negative plays? Can you get sacks? Can you get holding penalties? Can you get tackles for losses that put them behind the chains, that make them punt, not use all 4 downs, give you back the ball and give you a chance to get up 2 or 3 scores, and then to make them play that track meet game against you. So I think Knowles is the right coach for that type of a defensive approach. He certainly wasn't the only guy they could have got, but I think he's the right guy, and I think you're gonna see a much more exciting defensive unit to watch. And as a result, we're gonna give up some scores, we're gonna give up some big plays, but we'll also get those turnovers, those sacks, those tackles for losses, and I think that's really gonna be the key to the game.
Yeah, I agree. I can't wait to see the pass rush. They've got a couple of oak trees at tackle for Notre Dame. They got a 6'7" and a 6'8" kid. Big kids, heralded kids. Joe Alt was all everything. But it's going to be interesting to see how, JT and Jack Sawyer come off the edge, because these guys are truly going to be set free. There's no more restrictions on what they can do from a pass rush standpoint. I think that the guys that, in the spring game, when you saw how they were beating Paris Johnson, who, is 5-star, first round projection, first team All-American, all everything, it was shell shock. All of a sudden these guys are going against guys and they're not shackled to just rushing the outside outside shoulder, no inside moves, no spin moves. Like, all of a sudden they're hitting all these moves, and I don't think those guys are used to it. And it's hard to go against as a tackle. I've studied guys, and when a guy has a good spin move, that is something you have to be very aware of, because he will make you look really stupid if he can hit that on you. And JT and Jack have outstanding spin moves. So I'm hoping that we get a couple of those today, because I'd love to see that. Nevada, I'm going to stick with you. Offensively, I don't know what is left to be said. The triplets are fantastic. Marvin Harrison Jr. is just as good as Jackson Smith and Jigba. What do you project out of the offense tonight versus Marcus Freeman's defense? I think that we're going to get behind him a lot. I think every time we've played Notre Dame, it's no different than when Alabama or Georgia or one of the it's like Ben calls them the Northern Lambs. Like, when those guys run into the Bamas and the teams that have the guys that can really run, it always ends ugly. What do you project out of the offense tonight versus Notre Dame's defense?
I think it's just going to be a lot of chunk plays. I think I think Notre Dame's going to try to play that shell, try to keep us, try to make us a little bit more patient, try to keep things underneath, play guys back, try to prevent us from going over the top. So as a result, I think you're going to see a lot of Trey Henderson 6, 7, 8-yard runs, and a lot of passes, some shorter route concepts. But I think Ohio State rolls it up. I said 45. I'll stick with over 500 yards total offense, which it used to be like the magic number, and now in modern college football, I'm not even sure that's that impressive anymore. But I'll go with that. I think the Ohio State running game, I think it's gonna be a pretty equally balanced game. I'm gonna say 250 yards rushing, 250 yards passing, and Ohio State cruises comfortably.
Bank, are you with that? Are you around 500 yards? I feel like that feels low, but I could just be crazy. But where are you at with that, Bank, in terms of your projection?
Yeah, I think the 500 is good. I mean, Vegas right now has C.J. Stroud 338 as his passing total. I think he's going over that. I think he's going near 4.
Yeah.
But I still think Trey Henderson, his rushing total is 95, and I think he's going over that. I just, I'm anxious to see this O-line now that it's more of a, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's more of a normal O-line instead of the 4-tackle deal, where when you're playing Nebraska and it's 3rd and 2 and you have to throw, and then it's 4th and 2 and you have to throw because you can't run. So that's ridiculous, and I don't think we're going to see that anymore. I think 3rd and 2 is running down now. You smash it, and then you come back on 4th and you smash it again if you have to. So I think it's a better team offensively than what they were last year, and I think they're going to roll up a ton of yards. I mean, I think they're going over 500 yards. one of the props I liked is Trey Henderson to score 3 touchdowns is 7-1. And I'm going to play that just for fun because I think
Mm-hmm.
he's going to score 3 or 4 times. I think the secret this year is throwing him the ball a little more. He could catch it. We saw that last year. And I think this year, man, back those linebackers up, back those safeties up, and just dump it to Trey and let him go. So, yeah, I'm bullish on a 48-20 type game. So, and I think Notre Dame, when they get behind, they're in trouble. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That forces them to do things they don't want to do.
Yep.
Marcus has to play this game the Michigan way or the
Mm-hmm.
Oregon way, where you're running the ball, you're eating clock, you're limiting possessions, and you have the lead. I mean, I think that does so much. I mean, if Notre Dame gets behind, it's going to be Katie bar the door, and then the score is going to they're going to be turnovers, and it's going to be really, really ugly. But I think at 45-20, 48-20, somewhere in that, with well over 500 yards of offense.
Yeah, that's why I went 55-35, which people think I'm insane, but I just think that our offense is really potent. I think that, Notre Dame could get some plays in garbage time to get them on the board, score some touchdowns, get some pride back. But I just think that this offense is going to be, a tall task. I mean, every time we've played Notre Dame, we've had the athletes to run past them. And honestly, when we had, Teddy and Santonio, and then, we had Mike Thomas and Ezekiel and those types of guys, we have that kind of guys. And frankly, I think that those Notre Dame teams that we played those 2 years were better than this Notre Dame team. I think they're much better. I think that
Yeah.
they were better coached. I mean, I think Brian Kelly's a great coach. I mean, people think I'm nuts because he talks in a fake Louisiana accent, but he's won at Grand Valley State, Central Michigan, Cincinnati, Notre Dame. And Notre Dame is a hard place to win at. I think people think I'm nuts, but you're not getting the Georgia and Bama linemen into Notre Dame. It just doesn't happen.
No.
You're not getting,
No.
the Ohio State type kids into Notre Dame. It just doesn't happen. You might get one of them, but you're not going to get 10 of them. That's the problem. So when you run into a Bama, you run into an Ohio State, guys that can run, and you see the JT Tuimoloaus and the Jack Sawyers, they've got one of those guys. We've got two, I think it's going to get ugly. And honestly, like Marcus was my teammate, but I just don't know if he's ready for it. I mean, this is a big game. He's 35 years old or 36 years old. He's a year younger than I am. And it's like, he's coaching against Ryan Day, a team that's been whipped like dogs for the last 9 months because of how bad they lost to Michigan. They've been called soft. They've been called everything under the book. And, they had a whole staff get fired on defense minus LJ. So I think these guys are going to have a chip the size of Jupiter on their shoulder. And, I frankly think these guys are really pissed off. And I actually know they are because I talk to these guys a lot. And they're like, they can't wait to get out there and play tonight because, I think that Jim Knowles is going to cut them loose. And I think that, these guys want to make a statement on national TV. And I think that Notre Dame is, I think they're a paper tiger at 5 in the rankings. I don't think that they're going to deserve that. And by the end of the year, they could be a team that could end up unranked. It could be like when we played Texas in the 1-2 game in 2006. And by the end of the year, Texas, who was number 1 when we played them, was an unranked team that lost in the Alamo Bowl. So it's like, I think that's kind of how this Notre Dame team feels to me. I don't know if Jarrett Patterson's going to play. I think that would make a difference. If he does play with a foot sprain, he'll be at 50%. He'll probably take a toradol shot and try to play with it, but his mobility will be severely limited. And I would put Tyleek and Mike Hall right over top of him and have him bull rush every play until the ankle gives out. So Nevada, I'm going to come back to you. Bank mentioned some of those props. Did any of those props sound appetizing to you? The way Bank mentioned the 3 touchdowns by Trey Henderson. I'm stunned that CJ's only at 338 yards because I feel like he does that brushing his teeth in the morning, let alone, playing a college football game. I feel like I can't remember if he's ever had less than 405 touchdowns or whatever, because that's just kind of what the normal stat line is with Ryan Day's offense. But did any of those sound interesting to you? I'm going to put some film on while we're talking.
Well, I think the question really with Stroud is going to be, if the game gets out of hand, do they take him out and put in, the backups, and how many yards are they going to get him to throw? I'm telling you, I think Henderson will go over that prop, the rushing prop, in the first half. I'm going to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Henderson's going to get 100 yards rushing in the first half, and I totally agree with Bank in terms of the 3 touchdown prop for Henderson. I think he can score from anywhere in the field, and I think it's a great point about getting him the ball. on swing passes, on screens, on little flares. That's the perfect antidote to a defense that's backing up. Is get the ball to Trey Henderson, and like you said, he can do it from anywhere on the field. So I like those a lot. I'm not as crazy about the Stroud over 338, but I understand it. But I think there's going to be a lot more running today than we think. I think Ohio State. I think that's going to be the method for the game. Now, the question whether Ryan sticks with it or not is a different question. But I definitely think physicality and running the ball is something they want to get back to, and I think they're going to be run heavy. And will Mayan vulture some of those touchdowns? Will Mayan vulture some of those yards? Not sure, but I think Trey breaks at least one big one in the first half, and then he gets over 100. I'm going to say bold prediction: Trey Henderson over 100 yards rushing in the first half.
That is a very bold and spicy take. I love it. Bank, huge recruiting day today. Obviously, there are kids flying in today. Dylan Raiola is flying in today. Mateo Uyangalele is flying in today. Obviously, Dylan is solid, but you've got 3 5-star defensive ends in. We've had some question marks trying to find that second running back. Do you think that there's any thought? Obviously, the coaches, Ryan Day and those guys, they're playing to win the game, but do you think there's any thought you feature a Trey Henderson and you feature, Jack and JT, you bring them on some stunts and some edge rushes to, just to kind of excite the recruits? Do you ever think that goes into the game plan? I've sat in there and it's like, if you're trying to get a running back, and you're trying to get Richard Young or Justice Hayes or one of these guys to maybe reconsider Justice Hayes he's going to the Georgia-Oregon game today. He's committed to Alabama. If Trey Henderson gets off for $175 and 3 touchdowns, I think that looks pretty appetizing given he's got 1 year left after this. Do you ever think that goes into the game plan or the game flow? I mean, I know it does, but I was just seeing your thoughts on that.
Maybe when they play Arkansas State or Akron, maybe it does. I think today, man, you cannot lose this game. And if you look back, there have been, everybody always talks about, oh, they're at home, the shoe, it's crazy. Yeah, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma, Oregon. They lose these games. You know what I mean? Lately, they've lost these games at home. And these are with big crowds and wildness and craziness, and you get your ass kicked. So they got to win, Kirk. I mean, you can't mess with this game. You lose this game, you got to run the table the rest of the way. So they have to win. I mean, you can't really be. But I think the things that you do to try to win kind of hit your points. You know what I mean? What you have to do to win is you do have to turn Jack Sawyer loose and JT Tuimoloau loose. So when Mateo's sitting there watching this, he's got to be thinking, oh my gosh, I want to play in this defense. So, I think those things go hand in hand. But I don't think Ryan is sitting in meetings today saying, well, we got to feature Trey Henderson today because we know we're going to kill this team and that'll impress the second running back. And man, you got to win this game. So, but I do think all the things that you do to win the game go hand in hand with impressing recruits.
Yeah, I think that the scheme that Jim Knowles has and how fun it is something that is going to be real interesting to see how recruits react to the hybrid safety, the DNs, all the different things that they can get done. Nevada, obviously, this is going to be probably the biggest game that we've had in quite some time in the shoe. What are your thoughts, your closing thoughts as we wrap this thing up? Any other bold predictions for this game tonight?
No, I just think it's going to be a great one. It's going to be just so fun to watch to see. I've always said that coaching at the college level is almost determinative of success, and I think it's going to be fun to watch to see the Ohio State defense and how much of a transformation's been going on with them, and how much changes can happen in just 6 months with a new coach. And we'll see. I think we're going to see that on full display today. The difference in having a coach that's experienced and a veteran and competent, and what we had last year, and I'm excited to see that, and I can't wait to see it on the field.
Give me an offensive and a defensive MVP. I'm going to start with you, Nevada.
Defensive MVP, I'm going with Tommy Eichenberg. Offensive MVP, I'm going to go with my boy Trey Henderson.
Bank, who you got? Offensive and defensive MVP.
Well, I like CJ on offense. Best player in the country, big game at home, and I think he can't be stopped. And then defensively, I think Jack Sawyer. I think this will be Jack's coming out party. We've all We've been talking about him for 5 years now, and I think it's time for Jack to make a statement on the national level, and I think that comes tonight.
Well, since you took my guy, I'm going to go Marvin Harrison Jr., 2 touchdowns, and I'm going to go JT Tuimoloau, the other defensive end. I think he gets off. I think he's been a force in training camp, and I'm really excited to see him tear it up. So hopefully he tears up in front of Mateo, and then we get Mateo, and we can keep the Polynesian defensive end train rolling along. So, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys so much. We're going to wrap this thing up. Thank you both. That being said, it is time to get on the boards, everybody. The scoop is cranking right now, and we are unbelievably busy. We have the biggest game thread going. We have inside information leading up to kickoff until the foot hits the ball. We appreciate you guys as always. In the comments, I want your offensive and defensive MVP. Let's see it. Let's see who really knows what they're talking about. Appreciate you guys as always. If you haven't joined BuckeyeScoop.com, it is the #1 community for Ohio State fans. So if you've got, if you're a huge Buckeye fan, if your spouse is a huge Buckeye fan, if your dad is a huge Buckeye fan, if your kid is a huge Buckeye fan, it is the place to be. We have a lot of father-son combinations on the board. It's really wonderful. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. Let's go beat Notre Dame. Go Bucks.